Hey everybody, John Amigo here. Hello and good afternoon. Greetings from Shawano, Wisconsin. Alright, we are empty and headed home. Headed home back to Sheboygan. Local time here is 12:15. Open sesame. There you go. Stupid allergy. All right, Sheboygan is 103 miles from here to truck country. We are headed home and we're gonna stay home until Tuesday. Then we gotta go and pick up a load in Appleton, Wisconsin, headed for Houston, Texas. Once again, happy Sunday, everybody. Today is Sunday, September 2nd, 2018. Temperature here, it is 78 degrees. Some of you have been asking this for a very, very long time, so here you go. That is the rooftop view. I've had that, I've done that many months ago. I liked it, except for the bugs gets involved with it and it ruins the shot, right? So, question for those of you who have technical minds: why is it that when the rooftop view looks a lot slower than the inside cab view? Looks like we're traveling at 100 miles an hour right here, and that one looks like we're doing 55 or even 45 miles an hour. Can anybody take a gander, take a guess to why that is? Once again, this camera is Sony HDR AS300, as well as this one, but this one is the Sony 3000. It's the 4K model, but it's not recording at 4K. And this one is also a Sony HDR AS300. I can't figure out why that is. And with the JBG brain cells don't allow me to figure that out, so I'm so excited that I just can't hide it. Yeah, I know, I'm so excited. I realize that some of you this is the first time for you to have seen this view, and I hope you like it. I hope you like it enough to share it with your social medias so that others may enjoy it, and it would greatly help me and my family and support this channel. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Alright, so last night I gave you guys a little bit of a preview or prelude to, or told you about a story of how my mom or my dad met, and how my mom saved my dad. First, to begin with, it all begins in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. It all begins with my dad. It all begins to his life story. My dad was born and raised in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, the Valrath in Sheboygan. The Valraths and the Rices and the Kohlers, and those families were the big shots in Sheboygan in their day. And basically my dad was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. They were very wealthy. My grandfather was a metallurgic, founded the Valrath company, Valrath Stainless Steel. My grandmother, Elizabeth Hansen, they were the bankers of either Wisconsin or Sheboygan. They owned the banks. And between my grandfather and my grandmother, they sure built an empire. In fact, they were so big that in World War II, the Valrath company supplied stainless steel pots and pans, surgical equipments, even the U.S. Army. They were using the Valrath aluminum canteens, the kind that they use for drinking and cooking and all that stuff. Believe it or not, you could still see them around. So anyway, that was his family. Well, my dad was the oddball of the family. I guess every family, every rich family out there has a black sheep, and talk about a black sheep. My dad wore that crown proudly. Too proud. While everybody was wearing coat and tie, everybody was partying, socializing, and all that high-pollutant society, blah, blah, blah. My dad would be going to the junkyard, salvaging, broken engines, take them all apart, fix them all up, put them all together. And so my dad was a certified grease monkey. He was exactly like Larry. I mean, he could take things apart, put it all together, and if it doesn't work, duct tape it. Would be the solution. My dad was brilliant when it comes to engines, especially diesel engines. So again, while everybody was having a party, my dad would be out in the backyard or in the garage, covered in grease, and just experimenting stuff. My dad claimed that when he was in high school, he had the fastest Model T in the whole county, because he tweaked that thing so good. And he even claimed that sometimes those Model T, if you tune them right, all you got to do is kick them and they'll start. But anyway, so my dad and my grandmother did not get along, because my grandmother's idea supposedly of what a family or a Volrat family or Volrat children would be, is, you know, to wear coat and tie or all those nice fancy clothes for the whole public, to impress the public. And my dad would just not do it. So they were always at odds to, you know, they were always fighting each other. And the only thing that kept them civil was my grandmother, or my grandfather, my dad's father. And unfortunately, my grandfather died first. And when he died, there was no buffer between my grandmother and my dad. And that's when things got worse. And so my dad decided to be a sailor, as I mentioned last night. He became a sailor through the kind of a merchant marine. Not a navy, not in the military, just a sailor on a great freight ships around the Great Lakes, Lake Michigan, Huron, Superior, Erie. He did that for many years until he finally got his sea legs, as they call them. And when he was old enough to go overseas on the high seas there, he jumped one of those big ships that sailed around the world. He did that for many years. And one day, their ship was dispatched to pick up a load of pineapples in Del Monte, Philippines, in Bohol, Cagayan de Oro, Mindanao. And wouldn't you know it, when my dad saw the land, his jaw just dropped and became an anchor. Right there, he jumped off ship. Basically, that's kind of like in shipping lingo, says he quit right there. And started bumming around, and my dad was really one of those innocent Americans that really did not know other cultures other than his own. Certainly didn't know what a culture was, you know, Philippine culture. But all said and done, my dad kind of bummed around in Cagayan de Oro, and kind of money soon ran out. He wrote at home asking his mother for some money, and I guess she wouldn't send any money, so he was broke. And so he did whatever he could to survive. He asked for food, and you know, in every place there's always some bad actors and bad characters. And he unfortunately met a couple of bad actors in a local town, a couple of thugs, and certain people were mistreating him. And now, while this was going on, my mom was from the town of Medina, Misamis Oriental, which is about 130 kilometers away from the city. And it used to take about 6 hours to 8 hours on a bus, on a public bus. And it used to be where they would they would stop at every town on the way to the destination to drop off and pick up passengers. And it so happened to be that one of the towns that the bus my mom was on had a stop at a Bugu Kayanyo market. And at that time, my mom was a newly graduate being a teacher. And she was, she was educated at her time, unlike a lot of people at that time. Most people were just commoners. And now on my mom's side, she was born in a family of simple folks, but they had a lot of land. They were not rich, but they had lots of properties. I could remember my grandfather on my mom's side, and that's why she was able to go to college and be a teacher. So anyway, when their bus stopped at this market, she saw up in the distance where this crowd of people gathering around this young white American and having a hard time. And oh boy, my mom did not like that. She got out of the bus, started picking up some sticks and going to the crowd, defending this young white boy. Started yelling at people, and my mom was like a wildfire, a live wire, kind of a young petite lady. And she went off and just started, defending my dad. Now you have to understand, in Philippine culture back in the old days, you don't bring home a stranger. Especially you don't bring home an American white boy, a stranger. And that's exactly what happened. My mom brought this guy home and told my grandfather that I said, "Ty, this is Jack. He's gonna be living here for a while." So for a while, my dad lived with my grandfather on my mom's house, and you got to remember, their house was a native Filipino style house, all bamboo, all made out of native stuff. And basically that's how they met. And one thing led to another, and they finally became involved with each other. One of the funny stories about their love story was, for a long time they've been trying to have children, and for some reason my mom would always have a miscarriage. I don't know how many miscarriages she would have, but also Philippine culture is, if your child, if you are poor, you send your children to your brothers or your sisters or your relative, and to have your child live with your relatives and and or unofficially be adopted. There's so many adopted children in the Philippines that are not legally adopted, but they've always just either the neighbors or somebody out there that just can't afford to raise some, children, and they would leave these children to somebody's houses, and what ends up doing was this child becomes somewhat of a adopted children, and they would somehow, in some ways, sometimes work their way as a helper in the house. And one of those children was named as Max. Now, Max was a son of my mom's brother. Now, they were dirt poor for some reason, because I think Max Sr. was a drunk, squandered all the lands that he inherited and all that stuff, and so Max could not take care of Max Jr. So anyway, Max Jr. became my mom's somewhat unofficially adopted child. Now, Max was a very sickly boy. I think he had asthma, and for a while my dad and my mom were trying to have children, my mom took care of Max, and one day Max had an episode where he couldn't breathe. So my mom heard about this doctor in the city, a guy by the name of Dr. Mindy. So my mom took Max to this doctor and had him treated. Very, very good doctor. And so doctor says, "Is this yours?" And it says, "No, doc, this is just my adopted child, or my nephew. I can't have any children. I keep having miscarriages." To which the doctor says, "Why? What's going on?" And so my mom told Dr. Mindy what was been happening to her, and the Dr. Mindy says, I think I can help you with that. I don't know all the technical stuff, but I already remember growing up being told that story was somehow this Dr. Mindy mentioned something about an alkaline. And that word, that name has been lost over the ages, but it has actually come back in recent years. There's many stories on the internet where the reasons why people are so sick these days we're missing so much alkaline in our system. That's all I could tell you. That's all as far as I can go. But anyway, the story goes that Dr. Mindy treated my mom, and Dr. Mindy had a time and date for the birds and the bees to meet, to implant the seed, and I guess one day when that date was the consummation, they were supposed to get together. They were about 100 kilometers away. And my mom was in the big city while my dad was in Medina with my grandfather. Now, I don't know whether my mom had an appointment, she forgot or what, but boy, she did everything she could to get home for that date, because there was nothing on earth that was gonna stop her from being pregnant. And so my mom finally made it at home. Now you gotta understand, Philippine houses is not insulated, not soundproof, and it shakes. My mom goes, "Come on, let's go, let's do it." And my dad goes, "Here? But your dad is here. Everybody could hear us." And my mom goes, "I don't give a crap. Let's go, let's go." Oh boy. And it worked. 9 months later, a dude by the name of Andrew Valras, my older brother, popped out. And about a year later, oh, Johnny Be Good came out. Of course, I was the better looking one. The youngers are always better looking, right? Yeah. And soon after that, my mom and my dad bought a property right there by Del Monte, Philippines, in Bogo, again, Euro City. To my earliest recollection, that's where I would remember some of the earliest memories. As a young child, we would watch this massive ship. This ship was the largest in the world. Well, to a 5-year-old anyway. They would load these pineapples right there by the cannery, and sometimes these pineapples would go overboard. And so me and the kids around the village would go swim after these pineapples. I was a very excellent swimmer when I was a little boy. We grew up right there outside the fence of Del Monte, Philippines. Now, for some reason, I don't know how, I don't know when, or don't know why, but in every end of the shift of work. Now, by the way, the Del Monte, Philippines was a very modern American company. And if you worked there, you were working in a very, very advanced, very clean environment, American standard. You were working for one of the best companies in the world in the Philippines. And they paid you like Americans. So anyway, for some reason, people would come home and they would bring booklets and booklets of these wrappers, and people would make all kinds of stuff out of these canned wrappers. They would make them into curtains, all kinds of stuff. One thing that you have to understand also, Filipinos are known to be the best smugglers in the world. There was a lot of shenanigans going on at that cannery. And also there was, around the cannery was a lot of bad stuff too. A lot, if you wanted to get American goods, and basically that was the smuggler's cove. If you wanted American cigarettes, American liquors, anything American made product, that's where you find them. And believe it or not, because of my dad living in that little beach property in that village was then called Little Germany. Named after, in honor of my dad. So we lived there until about 1974. And in 1974, we migrated to the island of Camiguin Island. We first settled in the island of Sagay Camiguin. We stayed there for I don't know, not 1974. It's got to be earlier than that. And that's where we stayed there for a number of years until my dad finally found a property of his own in the barrio of Leong, L-I-O-N-G, Leong Ginsuliban, Camiguin. There he bought a beachfront property. It was all nothing but swamp. Nobody wanted that property, but he was the only one that saw the potential of what that property could be. And then he bought the property and turned it into, in the process of turning it into a resort. He was the very first visionary for tourism in the island. And I think he was the first foreigner to live in that island. Our house was pretty modern. We had our own electricity generator, running water, indoor plumbing. We're not gonna make this. Come on. So as I was growing up in the island, or in the village, I kind of grew up in both worlds. One, I lived in a, if you could imagine, I lived in a palace, but I played in the village. So basically, I grew up enjoying both worlds. My friends were all, common villagers. When I grew up, when I went home, I enjoyed the modern house of shower and electricity and all that good stuff. For the most part, I lived in a very happy childhood memory life. All right, once again, welcome to Denmark, Wisconsin. Local time is 12:54. Temperature is 80 degrees. Wow, look at the time. 43 minutes. You have wasted your time, my friends. Thanks for watching. Alright, we'll see you guys at home. As always, have a good and godly day, everybody. Johnny be good here. Peace.